Not enough evidence. Let's talk to the judge. Judge Andrew Napolitano is here. He's our senior judicial analyst here at Fox News. You know, at the time, he said there wasn't enough evidence to prove anything. Well, usually the way this works is a grand jury, if it chooses to indict, then the prosecutors roll the dice, put it before a jury of your peers, bring all the evidence out you have it, let the jury decide.
Right. You know, this is a real head scratcher, and as we were talking during the break, Shep, I have not seen this in my career. Maybe this will happen in my personal career. Maybe this will happen once in a lifetime. That's how unusual it is, that a grand jury will indict someone for a crime involving death, a form of homicide, and the prosecutor will not prosecute. Normally, the prosecutor would not present evidence to the grand jury unless the prosecutor really believed that the people against whom the evidence was presented committed the crime and that the prosecutor had enough evidence with which to obtain a conviction. You just wouldn't go to a grand jury with anything less than that. Now, he was under tremendous political pressure at the time. You remember that. I remember it. We all, those of us who covered it, do.
I feel like I lived in Boulder for a while.
Right. He may very well have just thrown all the evidence to the grand jury and said, you guys decide, hoping they would not indict so he could use that as an excuse and politically move on with the rest of the work in his office and with his career. Instead, he got an indictment, didn't follow up on it, and he has the discretion not to follow up on it. I'm not suggesting he did anything wrong. It's a tremendous act of political and moral courage to say to a grand jury, you indicted, I'm not good enough for me, I'm not going to prosecute.
Well, that's how John Ramsey saw it. But I think that some who covered this case and others who watched it in the Boulder area and beyond would say John Ramsey is a very powerful man in that community with a lot of ties in that community. That it's possible that the evidence, you couldn't tell exactly what happened for the evidence, but one of the theories was something bad happened to this child. Somebody covered it up.
Yes.
And the fear was that somebody might go to prison for something that didn't exactly happen the way they said. But whatever it was, you would think that justice would be able to play itself out.
Well, there's never been justice in this case. One of the grand jurors themselves, I don't know, male or female, broke the law by revealing what went on in the grand jury.
Can't believe it took this long.
And said, we don't know who did what, but we know they should have done something. Quite frankly, that's not enough on which to base an indictment. We don't know who did what, but somebody should have done something. On the other hand, we haven't seen the indictment. We probably never will. We haven't seen the transcript of what evidence was presented to the grand jury and what their deliberations were. We probably never will. It is presumably a valid indictment that the DA told us decided not to reveal to anybody, still not saying whether or not it ever existed, but one of his assistants said, former assistants, yes, it did exist. So it is a bizarre set of circumstances. Usually it's the other way around. Usually a grand jury, a DA is pushing a grand jury for an indictment and they're resisting rather than what happened in this case.
Yeah, this was an unusual case, local weirdness, and what a period in our lives.
Maybe there's another surprise coming, Chef.
Remember those news conferences and the Ramsey would shuttle people in and out?
Yes.
They coddled up to some reporters and wouldn't let anybody else in. The secrecy and the...
Yeah, some nut job confessed to this a few years ago. They locked him up for a week and then they realized the confession was absurd and they let him go. This case just keeps going on and on and on.
Unbelievable. Judge, thank you.
You're welcome.
Last week, Chicago